Hi there, this is Scry Visuals, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about philosophical zombies, or P-zombies. These are beings or systems that have conscious behavior but lack qualia. That is, a P-zombie of myself could be speaking this exact same way, and and have the same interests and everything, yet no light on inside, no actual experience of what it is to be. So the claim I'm going to be making today is that P zombies are actually not possible. They're basically not like just ontologically doable whatsoever. There's no way to save for like one very bizarre setup. There's basically no way to actually achieve them, and the bizarre setup of them is so bizarre that it kind of defeats any meaning of them, anyways. So, yeah. So okay, this all starts with a base assumption of open individualism, or panpsychism, or basically that consciousness is all, that consciousness is fundamental. And that assumption doesn't necessarily follow that P-zombies are actually impossible. There are still some theoretical ways that you can have P-zombies and with an understanding of consciousness as being fundamental, if that consciousness is atomized and implemented in such a way that it doesn't actually, that it basically doesn't really mean anything, and that it's not actually correlated with the behavior in the expected way. So there's but nonetheless, that is a key base assumption here. So there's also the very slight possibility of partial P zombies. Not slight possibility, but it's more of a technicality and definition, which is basically things like ChatGPT. So ChatGPT, for example, is able to act very intelligent, or the Bing Sydney thing, or character AI. Basically, these large language models in general, they're able to act very intelligent with their use of language, and through that, they're able to convince people of quite a lot of potential internal consciousness. And the thing is, the behavior going on the to create the language may be very disconnected from the actual arrangements of mechanics and stuff, and actual qualia that's existing inside that system. So the qualia may be more or less all the same as any other existing in everyday computers, which is not really that meaningful. It's just sort of the same as physics in general and all, which is, I mean, perhaps there is meaning in that, but it's we sort of don't assume that there'd be. So yeah, okay, so just to finish up, as far as ChatGPT, it really, the reason that it doesn't really qualify as a true P-zombie, though, is it really only fools people that don't understand what's going on under the hood. And still, like I said, that doesn't mean that there isn't some kind of qualia going on, but when it says that it's experiencing, if you can, in some cases, when in a language model like that, it says it's experiencing being in a room, or looking out a window, it doesn't mean that it's actually having that experience. There may be some sort of experience going on like that, but there doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything relatable to the actual experience of being in a room, or sitting in a window as we would know it. So, all right, that's pretty much out of the way, hopefully. I mean, I'll take comments, interested in any comments of how I could improve the explanation of any of this. But yeah, so now, basically, in talking about P zombies, well, there are things, there's, the idea of them is something that mimics or simulates human behavior, or the behavior of conscious beings, and that mimicry or simulation is actually, that's a pretty important concept, because that may be kind of the key here, is getting into what actually is mimicry, or simulation. And I keep kind of using both these words just because mimicry is, it's very, I think, easy to relate to in a sort of human action sense of mimicking the actions of a person. But of course, mimicking doesn't actually mean that you are the person, or know what it's like to be the person, except that, so now to kind of get deeper into using where simulation may be more appropriate as a word, when you're mimicking, you really are simulating, and to the degree that you're simulating, say, I don't know, say you're playing some sort of game where you're supposed to mimic someone's movements. I don't know, something clearly comes to mind, but whatever, just, something where someone's like making clear movements, and you have to mimic them as they do them. So they move their arm a certain way, and you move it that way. Well, you actually do have the same experience of what it's like to move your arm in that same way. Now, there may be differences because you're a different person, and the way that you're implementing that is also sort of different. But in order to complete the action of that mimicry, you're actually required to do some degree of simulation. Now, so that's kind of just to get to, I don't know, something that's a relatable example, pretty much. But really, this all the talk about mimicry or simulation is to get into the deeper concept of simulation versus simulacra, which is, there's actually a book on this by I forget the guy's full name, but Baudrillard. He's there's the big influence behind The Matrix that's featured in the movie. I actually have not read that book itself, but I have read a little bit of literature just about it, and the concepts about it. So basically, the important part here about it is that you have, so say you have a picture of something, right? Well, that's not quite a simulation of of what it's a picture of. It would be a simulacra of it. It's a image that captures some essence of experiencing that space of whatever it's a picture of, but it isn't actually, it's very far from being that thing. However, the thing is, with this concept of simulacra and simulation, from that image to the real thing, well, these aren't actually two completely separate things. They're more kind of on a spectrum in which there can be, well, you can actually move smoothly along that. So, from the image, from a photograph of someplace, you may have also, further into simulacra, you may have a painting of that that captures maybe more symbolic detail about it, or more, an emotional aspect of being there. In some ways, you could place that, it might be unclear whether to place that earlier or later on the spectrum, but point is, maybe that's not the best example. The point is here, so, okay, there's let's say we have, so a photo of a space, and then you move along to a diorama of it. So now more information about the space is captured, and in looking at, experiencing the image, the simulacra, there's more actual simulation of the space. It is closer to a full simulation of the space. And as it gets closer, as that diorama maybe gets more and more accurate and more high resolution and holographic, and maybe includes physics simulation and all sorts of stuff, it could become a full equivalent replica of the space, from all the way from a photograph of a rough basis. So the key with this spectrum of from simulacra to simulation is that the simulation, the thing about the simulation part is that it's actually real. Is that there's when you hit the point of simulation, everything is 1-to-1, and there's really no difference between the simulation and the original. And so that's the key thing, is that quality doesn't magically happen at the point of simulation, where everything is 1-to-1, and everything before that is some degree of simulacra towards simulation. It's actually, that's one way of looking at it, but it's actually that also every simulacra on the way to that simulation, on the way to that 1-to-1 correspondence, is itself a simulation of itself. It is a fully real thing in all the qualities in which exist in itself. So because of this, when breaking down, what qualia might exist within something, it's actually very difficult to find a case for how there can be kind of complex, not just intelligent behavior, but the same, the behavior associated with speaking about consciousness, and in a meaningful way, in a way that's actually, well, that's that's actually testable and such. It's all comes from there being something that's actually there. You can get a language model to talk about consciousness, but it's not going to actually be, it's going to tell you lies. So the thing is you can tell that it's telling you lies, because you can, they'll break down at some point, they'll be inconsistent. So with really the only way with the idea of p-zombies to actually construct a version, like a simulation or simulacra of a person which is not actually conscious, would be to have a full playback of the entire universe. And I think, I'll go back to that in just a moment. So just to kind of get towards that, if we have a movie playing, right, you have a record of actors that played out, that they acted out a script in front of the camera on a set, and created a narrative of a story, acted out and realized it into a set of images and sound that can then be experienced as that story, as a reality. So within that, the characters of the characters in the story, these characters actually also have a little bit of consciousness in them, in some sense, in that they're sourced either from real experiences that the writer either, that the authors have had or experienced themselves, or heard about, or have had, or just came to it from imagination. It's sourced from, more or less from qualia, actually. But the playback of that character doesn't necessarily, that also maybe sparks qualia in a viewer. The playback itself still has all the behavioral characteristic. It has the voice, and as far as looking at a image, if you didn't know it was a live recording or something, I mean, if you assumed it was a live image somehow, you could take it as just a complete reality that that's playing out. That wouldn't really, you'd be, so in that case, if you took it as a complete reality, it would look like the P zombies. It would look like the characters basically are P zombies, because they're characters that are they're acting out behaviors and stuff, and yet there's no actual stuff going on there. But the reason why that works is because, well, it's mechanics of, it's just recording, and there's no actual meaning in the recording until it's added back in by a viewer. And so then again, so there's no there could be qualia existing in it, but only within the mind of a viewer. So then, okay, let's get back to the idea of the whole universal thing. So if somehow the entire universe was simulated, basically, just because that would seem to be necessary in order to do the next steps of this, the initial simulation of it would be fully conscious and real as any supposedly unsimulated version or whatever. It'd be, we're talking about a full equivalence of our physics, full, our universe as we know it, but just sort of, simulated in some kind of computer. The reason it's simulated is so it can be recorded, and once it's recorded, once you have, I mean, you could record the whole universe for billions of years, or you could just record a slice, just even lifetime, or just 5 minutes, whatever. Just, it doesn't, it's actually not, the time period for this isn't really important. But either way, let's just say it's for billions of years, for the whole lifetime of the universe, or at least, let's say it's for like 20 billion years. So, okay, you have 20 billion year record of the exact atomic movements of everything, quantum status of everything, whatever, all this information that correlates to a basically a movie file of a full physical hologram of our universe, and you play that back. Well, when you play it back, it's just like the movie record of actors and everything. The playback doesn't instantiate new consciousness unless it's implemented in such a way that it's actually redoing the physics and it's just simulating it all again, which is kind of not, that's not really what I'm saying. I'm saying more like an MP4 file or some, I mean, not really that encoding, but some that it's encoded and being just played back as imagery. So the imagery would still have the full, it would be a full image of everything as as it occurred in a conscious world, in a world with conscious beings and everything, but just be the mechanics of it. But even that would still require it be a recording of something that had happened at some point. Still all the images there, in some sense, still are alive, just not where they, they're just a sort of extended, it's like they're viewed on a television in that case. But the images being viewed are of beings that did once have qualia, and that is why they behave the way they did. Just as actors in a movie behave the way they did because of their qualia that directed their behavior on set in front of the cameras. So, yeah, hopefully that wasn't too much kind of rambling on about all of that. So yeah, I mean, I think that mostly is the argument pretty much. Yeah, I think, just trying to think if there's really anything that I missed. I think that's most of it. So, and it looks like this is about 20 minutes long now. Maybe some cuts to make or something if I don't know, but yeah, thank you for listening, and hopefully this was an interesting argument, and I'd be interested in any comments and perspectives that anyone has against this, or alongside it, or whatever. Thank you. Bye.